A millionaire, arrogant and without faith in humanity, brought a bag full of money to provoke a beggar who was sleeping in the square. What happened next left him paralyzed, shaking everything he thought he knew about the value of life. Hello, welcome, enjoy, subscribe and activate notifications. Lucas knelt in the middle of the bustling square, a world of color and movement swirling around him, yet he felt ensnared in a moment of unbearable stillness. Clutching a bag filled to the brim with crisp green bills, his hands trembled as he loosened his grip, letting the currency cascade to the cobblestone beneath him like confetti at a sorrowful parade. Each fluttering note glinted in the stark sunlight, illuminating the stark contrast between his wealth and the grime of the world around him. The concerned faces of bystanders loomed over him, their expressions a tapestry of confusion, pity, and something else, curiosity. A woman's voice cut through the thick air, laced with an urgency that stirred something deep within him. "You don't understand anything about life, do you?" she seemed to challenge. The words echoed hauntingly in his mind, wrapping around him like a suffocating blanket. Hot tears pricked at the corners of his eyes, a betrayal of the bravado he had worn like armor for so long. As he gazed upward, the crowd blurred, morphing into a memory of a sun-drenched day just hours ago. In vivid detail, he recalled his journey to the square earlier that morning, fueled by a mix of arrogance and disdain. Stepping out of his luxury car, he felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. A world filled with shallow conversations and transactional relationships where people measured worth in dollar signs. Today, however, would be different. At the heart of it all was Clara, the woman who had unknowingly set this chain of events in motion. He had watched her asleep on the pavement, her face creased and worn, the remnants of a life that had given her nothing but struggle. A sick curiosity had sparked within him, urging him to confront her with the money, to expose her hopelessness under the glare of his perceived superiority. "Let's see how you react," he thought, a cruel smile curling on his lips. But something had caught him off guard. As he stood before her, ready to unleash his taunts, Clara stirred. When her gaze met his, it was as if she had peeled back the layers of his soul, exposing his fears and vulnerabilities. There, beneath the surface, he felt a ripple of remorse course through him, igniting questions he had never dared to ask. The unrest within him swelled, blending with the chaotic energy of the square, creating a crucible where shame, anger, and the faintest glimmer of hope collided. Lucas was perched on the precipice of transformation, teetering between the man he had always been and the possibility of becoming something greater. The scene around him faded, leaving only Clara's piercing eyes and the emptiness he sought to fill with wealth. The realization dawned: he was trapped in a life that had long lost its meaning. The journey back from this moment could only lead to one destination: redemption, if only he had the courage to embrace it. Returning to the present, Lucas stood over Clara, a twisted smile stretching across his face, as if he were about to unveil the greatest magic trick. The air was thick with the smell of fried dough from a nearby stand, mingling with the echoes of laughter from children playing in the distance. Shadows danced over the cobblestones, cast by the towering buildings that surrounded the square. In that moment, he felt invincible, the bag of cash in his hands, a shield against the world he scorned. "Hey there, do you want a taste of luxury?" he called, the mockery dripping from his voice. As he raised the bulging sack, the sunlight caught the edges of crisp bills, making them sparkle like diamonds against the dreary backdrop of Clara's existence. She stirred, blinking slowly, as if emerging from a dream. Struggling to reconcile the reality of her surroundings. "Do you think that will buy me happiness?" Clara inquired, her tone surprisingly calm. Lucas was jolted by the directness of her question. He hadn't expected a response, let alone one that pierced through his intentions. Clara's eyes, like twin pools of knowledge etched with pain, locked onto him with a fierce intensity. "This isn't about happiness," he replied, attempting to regain control of the conversation. "It's about opportunity. You can start fresh with this." He waved the bag enticingly, but Clara simply shook her head, dragging herself into a seating position, as if the weight of her world had shifted. "Opportunity," she echoed, her voice gaining strength. "Do you think money changes what's inside? It doesn't mend a broken spirit or heal wounds that run deep." She paused, a soft sigh escaping her lips. "I've had money before. It never filled the void, Lucas. It only masked the pain for a little while," Lucas faltered, her words striking a chord he didn't know existed. The crowd around them seemed to hold their breath, as if they too felt the gravity of the conversation. "But isn't it easier to have money? Isn't it easier?" Clara interrupted, her voice rising slightly, fueled by a fire Lucas hadn't anticipated. "Easier to be alone in your mansion, to sleep soundly while others suffer? No, darling, money can't buy love, friendship, or even respect. It merely acts as a distraction." He swallowed hard, the ridicule in his heart crumbling under the weight of her insight. In that moment, he saw a glimpse of who he could be, stripped of pride and illusion. The sun cast a golden hue around them, making her look almost ethereal, as if she were the muse to his awakening. "Then what do I do?" he whispered, barely audible but full of desperation. Clara's gaze softened, and for the first time Lucas felt the veil of his arrogance begin to lift, exposing the rawness of his vulnerability. Lucas felt a tempest brewing within him, an unsettling mix of frustration and intrigue swirling through his thoughts like a dervish. Clara's words carried an undeniable power, a force that tugged at something deep within, but he was determined not to show any weakness. He crossed his arms defensively, standing over her like a sentinel guarding his former life, his eyes narrowing slightly as he searched for a retort. How dare she presume to teach him about life? He was the one with the wealth, the status, the control. "Come on, Clara," he said, feigning a chuckle that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You really expect me to believe that you know more about happiness than I do? Look at you." He gestured broadly, taking in her dirt-streaked face and ragged clothes. "Can you even remember the last time you had a hot meal? This..." He shook the bag again, feeling its reassuring weight in his hands. "This could change everything for you. Just take it and start anew." A small crowd had begun to gather, their expressions a blend of curiosity and empathy, eyes widening at the sight of the confrontation. Lucas could feel the weight of their scrutiny, an invisible spotlight illuminating his battle for dominance. Clara's unwavering gaze pierced through his bravado, and he realized that he was not in control of this situation. The onlookers were holding their breath in anticipation of how this would unfold. "I don't need pity, Lucas," Clara replied, her voice steady but her eyes glimmering with emotion. "You're trying to buy my dignity, but you have only scratched the surface of what real life is. Beauty and joy are found in the simplest things, like a smile from a stranger or the warmth of the sun on your face after a long winter." Lucas opened his mouth to retort, but the words caught in his throat. It felt absurd to argue with her about the beauty of existence when he had spent his life buried beneath a mountain of wealth, tangled up in material possessions that suffocated the essence of joy. He glanced at the onlookers, faces painted with concern, lips pursed in disapproval. "Can you really be happy living like this?" he challenged, but the question sounded weak, a faint echo of his own insecurities. Clara leaned back slightly, surveying him with an expression that was both sad and wise. "Perhaps it's not about where you live, but how you live. Each day is a canvas, and joy can be the brush. I've learned to find beauty in the depths of despair. You, on the other hand..." "On the other hand, what?" he cut in sharply, though a thread of uncertainty threaded through his words. The tension hung in the air, palpable as a storm about to break. Clara took a deep breath, as if readying herself to reveal a truth that could shatter every illusion he held. "I can see your pain, Lucas. The fear of emptiness that lies beneath your wealth. You fear what happens when the lights dim and the applause fades. His heart raced, an unsettling mix of anger and vulnerability rising in his chest. What did she know about him? What gave her the right to judge? And yet, the very questions she posed felt like the key to a locked door within him, one he had long avoided. As Clara's words lingered in the air, Lucas felt a tightness in his chest that came from more than just disbelief. It was the heavy weight of realization pressing down on him, squeezing the pride he'd always clung to. The square buzzed around him, yet he felt ensnared in a spot where time seemed to freeze, a stark world devoid of color beyond the browns and grays of the concrete and dirt. Clara's fierce spirit shone like a beacon amongst the shadows. Fear of emptiness, he echoed incredulously, his voice barely more than a whisper now. What do you know about my life? He felt himself retreating like a soldier cornered on a battlefield. The crowd was no longer just an audience. They were witnesses to a reckoning he had not anticipated. Clara took a slow breath, her gaze unyielding. I know this, she said, gesturing around at the gathering crowd and the life they led, woven together by struggle and resilience. Each of us seeks something, whether we live on the streets or in penthouses. It's a matter of whether you choose to open your heart or lock it away in a gilded cage. Just then, an older man with a tattered coat approached. The lines on his face were deep, like rivers of experience mapping out a lifetime of hardship. She's right, you know, he croaked, his voice carrying the weight of countless untold stories. I once had a business. I thought money would buy me respect, but all it bought me was loneliness. When my empire fell, I lost everything. Those who loved me, they vanished. The crowd listened, entranced. Lucas fought to hold onto his defenses, but they chipped away with each shared experience. Another voice emerged, a woman with bright yet tired eyes. Money is not the answer, Lucas. I know firsthand. I was a nurse. I thought saving lives was everything until I was forced to turn away patients for lack of funds. I lost sight of why I chose this path. I lost myself. Each story struck Lucas with the force of a hammer on an anvil, shaping the raw material of his soul. He could see the pain etched on the faces around him, mirroring his own. Their vulnerabilities tangled with his fear, throwing him deeper into a crisis he was unprepared to face. Confusion churned in his gut as Clara spoke again, her voice soft but like a fierce wind. Vulnerability is not a weakness, Lucas. It's the human experience. Embrace it. Let the walls come down. Your facade only isolates you. He felt his breath quicken, a pulse of turmoil rippling through his body. What if what they said was true? What if each of his carefully constructed walls was nothing but a barrier against the joys he had denied himself? For the first time, his confident exterior cracked, revealing a glimpse of the shattered man beneath, a man who had always feared the abyss of connection. The collective stories echoed in his mind, challenging him to look inward. And as he stood there, he realized that facing these truths was the beginning of potentially reshaping his very essence. A choice lay before him. Continue to run or step into a vulnerability that might reveal a deeper love for life. The air hung heavy with tension as Clara's piercing gaze fixed upon Lucas, her unshakable presence demanding an answer. Leave the bag here, Lucas, she urged, her voice a soft yet powerful echo in the cacophony of the square. Let it go and give these people a chance. Give yourself a chance to see what truly matters. His heart raced, echoing in his ears like a drumbeat urging him forward, yet his feet felt cemented to the ground. The warmth of the sun above wavered, overshadowed by an aura of cold uncertainty enveloping him. He glanced down at the bag. Lush green bills nestled tightly within, each one a reminder of his status and power. But now, they began to resemble chains binding him to a life he was questioning more than ever. Are you insane? He shot back, a defensive reflex masking his inner tumult. That money is mine. It represents everything I've worked for. The crowd around them leaned in further, escalating the atmosphere to a palpable edge of disbelief and anticipation. Clara leaned in closer, her intensity unwavering. But what have you truly achieved with it? An empire built on vanity? You're standing on the precipice of something remarkable, a chance to awaken not just your soul, but countless others. Amidst the faces of the bystanders, Lucas noticed their eagerness, their hopes pinned on him like the fluttering leaves of autumn hanging by fragile threads. It was as if every gaze was a mirror reflecting back the bits of himself he had long ignored. The challenge Clara presented morphed from a task into a revelation, illuminating the dark corners of his heart. "Imagine," she continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper, "what could happen if that money transformed lives instead of creating distance? Letting go could be the most liberating act you ever make." The words wrapped around him like a cocoon, numbing his trepidation. He could envision the lives that might flourish under the weight of hope, a child's laughter, a warm meal, a roof above a family's heads. A shiver of empathy rippled through him, begging to be awakened. "What is it worth if not shared?" Clara pressed, her eyes searching his. "If it merely sits in your hands, it means nothing more than an empty vessel. Will you let it keep you shackled, or allow it to be the key to your freedom?" Lucas's mind swirled, caught in a tempest of doubt and possibility. He lifted the bag slightly, feeling its weight pulling at him, both a comfort and a curse. With each beat of his heart, the internal conflict reached a fever pitch. How much longer could he pretend that life was solely about his wealth? As Clara's hopeful expression inspired him, the rain of truth fell upon the roof of his defenses, slowly softening the stone. Slowly, as if his very essence was shifting, he found himself teetering on the precipice of a decision that could redefine him. The question no longer was about his money. It was about who he had yet to become. Under the watchful gaze of the crowd and Clara, he felt the chains of his old self start to rust and falter. The weight of the bag in Lucas's hands grew heavier with each passing moment, a physical embodiment of his inner turmoil. He stood at the epicenter of an awakening, yet uncertainty gripped him like a vice. The crowd, now fully absorbed in the unfolding drama, radiated a sense of anticipation that electrified the air. Their eyes, filled with hope and curiosity, bore into him, exposing the fragile fabric of his bravado. "Just let go." Clara's voice reverberated in his mind, a persistent whisper mingling with the clamor of thoughts battling for supremacy. "What do you truly want, Lucas? To collect wealth or to see lives flourish?" He glanced around, seeing the faces of those whose stories had entwined with his own, a mosaic of resilience etched into their features. There was the old man, the woman, and the other souls who had dared to share their hearts. Each one seemed to beckon him, urging him toward a choice that felt monumental, yet painfully uncomfortable. Doubt clawed at him, gnawing at the edges of his self-worth. What if I do this and it changes nothing? The thought slipped through his mind, as insidious as a serpent hiding in the grass. What if they all turn away when the money is gone? They were mere shadows of fears he had constructed throughout his life, and he fought against the instinct to retreat behind the walls he had so meticulously built. Hey, Clara interrupted his spiraling thoughts, stepping closer, her presence a stark reminder of the moment. "This isn't just about you. It never was. It's about what you can build, about the lives you can touch. Look at them." She gestured toward the crowd, her expression an exquisite blend of compassion and urgency. Lucas's gaze darted from face to face. Each person held something within them, an untapped potential waiting for the spark of change. Yet it was not just their futures at stake, it was his own. He felt the pulse in his veins quicken, merging with the drums of his heart. What existed inside felt like a tidal wave of conflicting emotions, a clash between the man he was and the man he longed to be. "Make the choice," a voice shouted from the crowd, breaking through his fog. Lucas realized that as much as this was about the money, it was more significantly about the path to his redemption. The price of pride weighed heavily upon him. "Stop thinking like a businessman," Clara urged, her voice rising above the chaos, desperation threading through her words. "Think like a human being." Tears pricked the corners of Lucas's eyes as he fought against the walls closing in, the pressure becoming suffocating. In that moment, he felt like a balloon being stretched to its limits, desperately trying not to burst. A profound realization dawned on him. Accepting vulnerability would lead him toward freedom. The bag became a symbol, not of wealth, but of connection. What would it mean to step away from fear, to shatter the self-imposed confines of his life by redirecting this money into the lives of others? The internal battle for control threatened to overwhelm him, yet he felt a flicker of hope ignite within his chest. He took a deep breath, the scent of freedom and possibility mingling with the air, and cast one last glance into the eyes of the crowd, searching for clarity, and then back at Clara, who stood resolute, her unwavering belief in him lighting a path through the shadows of his past. The moment stretched, a taut string pulled to its breaking point as Lucas stood there with the bag of money in hand. The cacophony of sounds, the distant laughter of children, the chatter of onlookers, the rustling of leaves, faded into a hushed silence that enveloped him. He felt as if the entire world was suspended, holding its breath in anticipation. Every heartbeat echoed in his ears, a reminder of the gravity of this choice. Clara's unwavering gaze pierced through the fog of his uncertainty, demanding action. "You have the power to change lives, Lucas. Don't let fear cage you any longer," she urged, her voice steady and full of conviction. The sincerity in her eyes ignited a flicker of courage within him, a warmth spreading through his core. With a deep inhale, he felt the air fill his lungs with possibilities, and in that breath came clarity. He envisioned the faces of those around him, not the caricatures he often dismissed, but real people with stories, desires, and dreams. He could finally see the intricate web of humanity that surrounded him, threads of connection weaving through the square, uniting them all. I can't keep this," he stammered, the words tumbling out, raw and unrefined. In one fluid motion, he lifted the bag and, shaking slightly, opened his hands. The bills flowed forth like a cascade of autumn leaves, fluttering through the air, dancing with a freedom he had long denied himself. Gasps rose from the crowd, disbelief mingled with awe as they watched the transformation of a man once ensnared by his own materialism. The rippling effect of his decision spread like wildfire, igniting sparks of hope in the hearts of those gathered. Clara stepped forward as some of the bills fell at her feet, her eyes shimmering with gratitude. "Thank you, Lucas," she breathed, her voice quivering. "This will mean the world to so many." As the crowd erupted into applause, Lucas felt the walls he'd built around his heart crumble. Each clapping hand resonated with acceptance. Laughter erupted mixed with joyful sobs, and he stood amidst the storm of emotions, no longer the outsider he had been moments before. Faces lit with joy surrounded him, each one a reflection of his internal shift. The old man, the woman who was once a nurse, and others stepped forward, collecting the scattered notes and whispering their thanks. Lucas felt himself enveloped in a surge of warmth and belonging, as if he had finally been welcomed home after a long, treacherous journey. The transformation was profound. It was as if a heavy curtain had lifted, allowing sunlight to flood into the corners of his soul. He was a part of something far greater than himself, a tapestry of humanity woven with threads of compassion, vulnerability, and courage. The emptiness he had felt before began to fill with a rich and vibrant sense of purpose. "Welcome to life, Lucas," Clara said softly, her hand resting on his shoulder, grounding him in that precious moment. As he looked around at the faces alight with gratitude and joy, he realized that the path ahead would not be without challenges, but it was a path he would embrace, fully and unreservedly. In that heartbeat of collective celebration, Lucas found himself reborn, not just as a man of wealth, but as a man of heart, ready to forge deeper connections with the world around him. Weeks drifted by, like the gentle rustling of leaves in a summer breeze. The plaza, once a mere backdrop to Lucas's arrogance, had transformed into a living tapestry of life, love, and hope. Each day, he arrived filled with purpose, weaving through the throngs of people, no longer an aloof observer, but a participant in the rhythm of their existence. Lucas gravitated toward Clara, their friendship blossoming under the warm sun as they shared moments, laughter, and camaraderie, exchanging stories that bridged the gap between their vastly different worlds. She taught him to see beauty in the small delights of life, the laughter of children ringing like sweet chimes, the smell of fresh bread from the nearby bakery wafting through the air, and the rich colors of the flower stalls, vibrant reminders of nature's resilience. "Look at how the flowers tolerate the harshest of seasons," Clara mused one afternoon, arranging a bouquet in a worn but elegant vase. "They teach us to bloom no matter the circumstances." Lucas watched her, captivated not only by her words, but by the way she brought life to every moment, infusing it with meaning. "Maybe I can learn to bloom too," he replied, a new determination lacing his tone. He felt a sense of connectedness forming, like threads interlacing in a grand pattern of humanity. Lucas volunteered at the community center, helping organize food drives and outreach programs that offered warmth to the homeless and support to struggling families. His hands that once dealt in money now embraced action and philanthropy, nurturing a network of goodwill in a community that had once felt distant from him. One rainy afternoon, he stood under the awning of the center, watching as Clara handed out blankets and warm meals, a goddess of compassion in the downpour. Her smile illuminated the grayness of the day, reflecting the spark of hope they were igniting together. He approached her, his heart swelling with pride for the work they were doing. "I never thought I would find fulfillment in this," he admitted, glancing around at the smiling faces, each one a testament to their efforts. "It's more than just giving money. It's feeling connected, breathing the same air of humanity." Clara smiled warmly, her eyes sparkling. "And that is where true wealth lies, Lucas. In every shared moment, every connection you forge, you grow richer beyond compare." As the sun began to set, casting golden rays over the street, he felt a surge of energy, as if the universe had stitched him back into the fabric of life. People gathered, sharing stories, laughter punctuating the air like magic sparks, and Lucas knew he was no longer an outsider, but a vital thread woven into the collective tapestry of their lives. At that moment, he recalled how he used to overlook the richness around him, how he had once wandered through life, encased in a bubble of privilege and isolation. Now, as he looked around at the community flourishing before him, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He had found meaning, transformed by relationships built on empathy and shared experiences. With every hand he shook, every grateful nod directed his way, Lucas understood that he had not just changed the lives of others, he had salvaged his own. Now he carried a wealth far greater than he ever could have imagined. The knowledge that a heart open to others could lead to a lifetime of purpose. And through this shared journey, he had discovered that to truly live was to connect, to give, and to embrace each day as precious as the next. As the light began to fade and the stars took their places in the velvet sky, Lucas felt a sense of peace settle over him, one that distanced itself from the shackles of his past and welcomed a future alight with possibility. In this fulfilling cycle of giving and receiving, he had ultimately found his redemption. Don't miss our next videos. Subscribe to the channel and activate the notifications button. What did this story seem like to you? Leave your comment.